Hello, everybody. So I promised some of my group clients that I would come to you guys live and talk about food. So food, when we are talking in relation to the faster way to fat loss, it's really important to know what to eat. So, you want to eat as clean as possible. So I'll go over those things, but you also want to know when to eat those foods because we carb cycle. So, hi, Jessica. So the point of, and if you guys have anyone that has questions, go ahead and tag them in this video as I'm talking so that they know that I'm talking about food, how to eat it, when to eat it, what is it. So make sure that, you are tagging people if they have questions too. So I'm going to go over, first of all, what type of food do we eat on the faster way to fat loss? We eat whole foods, most of the time as practical as possible, that meet our macronutrient gram goals for each specific day. So what does that mean? Anything that comes from the ground or has a mother. Now someone says, oh, well, what about dairy? We are dairy and gluten free. That is because most people, about 70% of people, are allergic or have some sort of reaction to dairy and gluten. So that is why even if you don't have like major symptoms, you don't have celiac disease, you don't have like all of this crazy stuff going on, you could be sensitive. So we ask and suggest that our clients go dairy and gluten free for at least the first couple weeks to see if there's any change. Because what happens if we have dairy or gluten in our system and we are somewhat sensitive, it inflames our system, which decreases our ability to burn fat. So that is why we want to get rid of the processed food. That's why we want to get rid of allergenic foods. That's why we want to get rid of those things that make your body inflamed, because we cannot burn fat as well when our body is inflamed. So that's step number one. Whole foods come from the ground, have a mother. Now you say, well, what about, grains and all of these things? We stay away from the ones that have gluten. So that is wheat, barley, and rye. We stay away from those three. So we are okay with, oats and steel cut oats and those types of things, rice, quinoa. So I'll go through those specific foods here in a second, but I want to give you a rundown of what Whole Foods is, why we stick to Whole Foods in this program as much as possible, as practical as possible, because we know that everyone has a life. We know that you're going to eat out. We know that you have family functions, and we don't want you to be sitting in a corner saying, I can't eat anything because I'm on this diet. It's not a diet. We are training you how to put foods in certain days so that your body accesses and burns that type of food for fuel instead of storing it. So that's the purpose of the type of food each specific day in our carb cycle and how that plays into us burning fat. So let's go into a low carb day. Again, the point of a low carb day is to deplete your energy stores. So you have carbs for energy, you have your glycogen stores, and you have your fat stores. So what we want to do is eat a low carb diet on our 2 first days. And what does that look like for those in the faster way to fat loss? We are going to say your carbs are really low. Hi, Janelle. Your carbs are really low. Your protein is at a normal amount, just like every other day, and then your fat is really high. So what types of food fit in that category? So what you're going to do is you're going to have your fatty meats. And I say fatty because they're still lean. You're still cooking them. It's not like you're, it's not, I don't know how else to explain it, but it's still lean protein. So that's like your bacon, your pork, your red beef, steaks. I have a list here. So I'm going down. Eggs, nuts. Hi, Erin. I'm so glad you guys are on here. So those are your fatty proteins that go on your low carb day. The reason why I say you want fatty proteins on your low carb day is because sometimes you're going to crave those types of meats, but they will kind of make your regular macro day a little out of whack if we don't watch it. So on your low carb day, you want to eat the fattier meats. That's kind of how I say vary your protein. Let's say high fat, high protein options on low carb day, because we don't really care. We care. We're gonna, meet our goals, and we're not overeating, but we have a ton of room in our fat category on low carb days. The carb category, basically the only carbs that you eat are from the leafy green veggies that you add into your meals. So specifically for me, I have a big kind of like plate full of Brussels sprouts, sauteed spinach or kale. Then I have like meatballs or bacon or chicken, meatloaf, something like that. So like that's kind of what my low carb plate looks like, is eggs, bacon, sausage, beef, with roasted Brussels sprouts, sauteed broccoli or roasted broccoli, any of those options, because those 50 grams of net carbs or less are going to fill up with those leafy green or Brussels sprouts. So that's why we say really any of your potatoes, your grains, anything like that is not really a great option for low carb day at all. So what you're going to do is you're going to have your colorful veggies. Don't do any root veggies on your low carb day. And then, like I said, hi Judy, and that is where your focus is. So I hope that gives you a little bit of like insight into a low carb day. You also can do nuts. Just be careful of your carbs, because most times nuts are kind of a balance. They have protein, fat, and carbs. So while they're heavy on the protein and fat, they still have some carbs. So you need to be careful with adding in nuts throughout your low carb day. You probably want to stick to like 2 or 3 servings of nuts on your low carb day, just because even though it's a good fat and protein source, it still has those carbs in it. Let's go into a dinner time for low carb real quick. So dinner time for us really looks like a meat and then a veggie. And you say, well, how am I supposed to get 2,000 calories with 2 meals? Again, that's eating your fat. I add oil to everything. I add clarified butter to everything. I use that as my flavor. The fats that I consume in my low carb day, which is how I'm getting my fat up, is the dressing that I put on my salad in the middle of the day with my eggs and bacon and all that, and chicken and all that stuff. I'm drizzling it with avocado oil, and not just a teaspoon of avocado oil. I'm putting salt, pepper, avocado oil, lemon juice. There's a recipe in the program guide of a salad dressing that's really good, kind of high in fat. So make sure you guys look at that. And so that's how I'm adding additional fats, is I'm cooking my stuff in coconut oil. I'm cooking my stuff in clarified butter. So those are the things that I want you guys to think about of how am I supposed to add more fat to meet my calorie goal. Add more fat through your oils and your seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds, anything like that that you can sprinkle on top. Really, really, really increase your calorie intake and your fat intake. So focus on that when you guys are thinking low carb. Let's switch over to regular carb for a second. When we talk regular carb, the point of our regular macro day is to refuel. So low carb days, we deplete your carbs initially, we deplete your glycogen, and so now your body is revved up and ready to reach into your fat stores. The point of regular macro day is to refuel in the carb macronutrient to the point where you're using those carbs to fuel your strength training workout. You're using those carbs to fuel your everyday activities because now you're only refueling up to what you'll actually use, right? Because you've depleted everything else, you're only refueling to what is needed for that specific day. So for us, that would be Wednesday. So Wednesday, we focus on refueling on carbs. We, again, have a normal level of protein. Our protein level never changes. And then we have a normal level of fat. So what is our focus for regular macro day? We need lean protein. And when I say lean protein, less fatty protein. So you're thinking tuna. You don't want to do a lot of eggs on regular macro day because eggs have quite a bit of fat. So you want to do tuna, you want to do any type of other fish, beans, chicken. A lot of people like salmon. So when we are saying, hey, we need to get our protein in, which is, for most people right around 100 grams, give or take, when you get that protein in, how do you get that without adding more fat, right? That's going to be the trouble with trying to add more fat. So, or not add fat, but add protein. So a lot of my clients do the collagen. A lot of my other clients and fellow coaches sometimes do a vegan protein powder. I don't like protein drinks. They make me feel bloated. They don't sit well with me. I do not do protein bars. So I fill my protein with real protein. That is how I've been doing it. I've been struggling the last 3 weeks to get because I've had to up my gram intake for protein because I'm building more muscle, which means I need more fuel. So I'm struggling a little bit because I had to add about 10 more. It was only 10 grams of protein that I added, but it was harder for me to reach that goal. So we have to be really conscious on regular macro day to meet our protein goal without having a lot of additional fats. So on your regular macro day, you won't be adding those oils. You will not be adding a lot of the seeds. You don't add those to your salads. Don't add those to the things that you bake. What you can add on regular macro day, because you now have about 200 grams of carbs or 250 grams of carbs that you can eat fruit, eat grapes, apples, bananas, watermelon, cucumbers. You can start adding the higher carb veggies. So you can start adding the potatoes, sweet potatoes, squash. Squash actually has a decent amount of carbs in it compared to other non-root vegetables. So when you're thinking, all right, how do I keep meeting my gram goals while meeting my fat and protein, let's focus on carbs on regular macro day because that's where your greatest amount of food is really going to come from, which is really hard for some of us because we've been eating low carb subconsciously for years, okay? Saying, oh, no, that's just too carby. We've cut out all of the good carbs too when we stopped eating bad carbs. So let's put the good carbs back into us because women specifically need carbs in order for our thyroid and adrenal glands to function. Because if we stop giving ourselves carbs, something's going to break, and that something is your thyroid. So we want to make sure that we are focusing on adding those good carbs back into our diet, which again are your fruits, your root veggies, anything, your beans. Beans are a great source of both protein and carbs for regular macro days. So that's also a good source. What we want to be careful of in this scenario is many people have sensitivities to certain types of carbs. So someone will say, well, I'm carb sensitive. Well, okay, maybe you're not carb sensitive to all carbs. Maybe you're just carb sensitive to one type. So I'm a little bit sensitive to quinoa and rice. So I will feel a little bit more bloated. Is brown rice, quinoa, pasta an approved food? So I would say brown rice and quinoa are an approved food. When you get into the pastas, that becomes something that's just a little bit more processed and further from its natural state than if you were to just have the grain itself. So while it is still something that is an approved carb, it's still something that's a little bit more processed, a little bit further from the natural state than we really want it to be. So if you could focus back and just say, I'm going to eat quinoa instead of quinoa pasta, that would be better. Just because, like I said, when you go through more processing, you're stripping and changing the molecular makeup of that type of food. So if we can stick with the most natural state of that item, it's the best. So I'm not going to say don't eat it, but I'm going to say it's probably better if you have it in its more natural form. So when we're, again, sensitivity to different types of good carbs, I have a sensitivity slightly to sweet potatoes. I did not know that until about 2 months ago. Had no idea. But I kept getting like red, and you can still see it. It's like it gets red every now and then in my eye. And I'm like, what is this from? And they're like, oh, just allergies. And then I cut out sweet potatoes for a little while, and I was like, my eye's better. So again, we will notice things as we switch up the types of carbs that we eat. Some people, again, are sensitive to rice. Some people are sensitive to oats. So even though, like, it's great that we can eat oats now, and it's great that we can have our steel cut oats and our overnight oats with bananas and almond milk, maybe some people, it actually causes inflammation. So that's why I say in the first part of your program, the first 3 weeks, experiment with the types of grains and the types of carbs you're putting in your body, because when you come to me and say, I feel bloated, the regular macro days are just not working for me, I don't know why, I feel like I don't think this program's working for me. Maybe something you're eating, you have a sensitivity to. So we're cutting out things as far as processing. We're saying eat whole foods that come from the ground or have a mother, but also each person is biochemically different. So that is something that we want to make sure that we are taking, notes and journaling about some of the stuff how it makes us feel. We want to figure out our own body, and this is a whole health program which allows us to kind of research that in the different types of food we eat, which is also a reason why we do not provide you a specific meal plan. We provide you an approved foods list, we provide you with suggestions, we provide you with like our Instagram posts and recipes, and hey, this is what I ate and this is a great idea, to give you ideas. But we also want you to eat foods that you like and that your family likes, and that you don't have a sensitivity to. So my coach, Amanda, has a sensitivity to eggs, so she doesn't eat eggs. Another coach has a sensitivity specifically to quinoa, so she doesn't eat quinoa. So again, we don't want to put all of these meal plans together and say, do this, and then 100 people come back and say, well, I'm allergic to that, or I don't like that. I don't like broccoli. Then don't do broccoli and do Brussels sprouts. Switch it up. So I'm going to look at some of these questions. Can you have coconut aminos? I'm thinking with rice or in stir fry. Yes. So that is perfectly fine. I would say thumbs up on that. Does putting a few tablespoons of unsweetened coconut or almond milk and stevia in your coffee break the fast? So the only thing that breaks your fast is if you're over 50 calories or have fiber in it. So I would have to look at unsweetened coconut. I'm not sure if it has fiber in it. I always add that to like my protein and fat balls that I make as a snack. But I would have to look at the nutrient label to see if it has any fiber. We don't want to have fiber during our fasted state, and we want to be under 50 calories. So stevia is a great option. A little bit of almond milk is perfectly fine. Even a little bit of coconut milk is perfectly fine. So if you can do coconut milk, I assume you can do unsweetened coconut. Maybe a thing. Check on that. I don't have it in front of me. But that's the goal in your fasted state, is to stay under 50 calories with no fiber. That's when we are doing our 16-hour fast. Those are the rules. So you can have black coffee, you can have teas, you can have herbal teas, you can have, you can put some stevia in it if you'd like. Just make sure that you're drinking a lot of water. And when I say a lot of water, I drink about 50 ounces of water during my fasted period, and then I drink another 30 ounces during my 8-hour feeding window. So I'm drinking quite a bit of water, and that is something we're going to focus on as well when you are going through the program. Let's see. I'm just going to list some fats. Like I said, I think our fats aren't usually an issue to increase as long as we're adding those oils to our low carb days. But as far as fats go, we can have avocado oil, coconut oil, some olive oil if you want to do the olive oil route. Your nuts, flax seeds, chia seeds, all of those are really good options. Hemp seeds are great options. And then, like I said, your fatty proteins and stuff like that. So that's kind of where we get our fat from. Like I said, most of the people in the Faster Way to Fat Loss don't have too big of an issue when you're increasing your fat intake for low carb day. The issue is making sure your fat intake stays at that 30% level of split between your macronutrients. So on the regular macro days, you're 50% carbs, 30% fat, 20% protein. So when we're talking regular macro day or low macro day, which is just a decreased amount of those three, your regular macro day, you're going to have to watch your fats a little bit. So caution on that. Choose lean meats and make sure you're getting in those pure carbs, which again, fruit, all carbs, ladies and men. Most of your grains have some sort of, carb, maybe with a couple grams of protein. So those are great. Those are pure, basically pure without any fat. So when you're looking at carbs, try and see if there are carbs out there that don't have fat. And I'm going to talk to you guys about whole foods versus processed food versus eating out. So Taylor's been home for 3 weeks, okay? And before that, I was eating my own food, doing my own thing, had I had a routine, right? So since he's been home, he likes more food with more ingredients than I do, which I guess, maybe that makes sense, maybe it doesn't. But he likes, 10 things on his plate. So I'm like, all right, well, now I have to calculate all of this stuff, right? And so my numbers were getting a little bit more hard, a little harder to calculate just because I was adding more stuff to these dishes. And I was used to just doing 3 items. And so for me, in that scenario and everyone else that has families, we just need to be conscious that we're not going and eating those chips that are kind of oily, because even though the chips are carbs and they might not have gluten in it, they're still processed and they actually still have fat in it. So that can actually jack up your regular macro day, even though you think you're just eating chips. Because when you sit at a Mexican restaurant and you eat chips, I can guarantee you there's some sort of oil or something in that paper layer in the basket, okay? So watch those things if you're eating out or going somewhere. When something looks innocently like a pure carb, maybe it's not. So when we're talking about treats, Saturday is leg day. We have a treat on Saturday because we don't want to live restricted and we want to love life. So when you choose your treat on Saturday, if that's ice cream, make sure you know that has quite a bit of fat in it. So adjust your macros for the rest of the day and realize that your ice cream cone it fits your macros. So we're saying have a treat, but make sure it fits in that gram total that, we have generated out of MyFitnessPal. So you'll have a lot of fat come out of that ice cream, and you're going to have to eat a lot of other pure carbs and a lot of low fat protein in order to meet your goals on that regular macro day. If you have a treat, that's baked, okay? Baked goods, love them, praise them. If I could eat them all the time, I would. But I have one every Saturday. That being said, baked items have more fat then it comes to the eye. Like, they taste amazing because they have butter and they have all these things in it. So when I'm putting that into my Fitness Pal as my treat for leg day, I have to realize that I can't go have a hamburger on leg day 2, because having a quarter pounder hamburger is going to put my fat way over if I have that pastry as well. So those are the things when you are not eating whole foods, or when you are eating out during the week because you have to, we need to be careful about the additive things that are in those items that we don't just see with our eyes. So we have to think, okay, what is this cooked in? Or what are some of the like fat nutrients or grams in this specific thing that I didn't think about? Because that's the thing that's going to throw you off. It's not going to be the stuff that you eat at home, because the stuff that you eat at home, you know what's in it. You can pre-plan. You kind of have an idea of what goes in which day. It's when you eat out, you want to still meet your macros. That is the goal. That's why this is sustainable, is because we say if you eat out, still meet your macros. Like, that's your goal. But if you don't know what's in that dish that you're eating out in, think about it first and then eat it. That's my suggestion, is think about it. Kind of say, oh, that's, kind of a 50, 30, 20 split. I'll have that anyway. So I hope this is helpful. I hope I was able to answer a lot of your questions about what goes where, how, when, what. And if anyone else has any questions about food, carb cycling, for my clients that are on right now, I will answer those questions specifically in each of our group. But again, I wanted to do this publicly because I keep posting recipes and I keep posting different things. I'm getting quite a few questions about how that actually fits into our program and how I actually eat. So again, I hope this is helpful. Thank you all for joining me, and I will talk to you soon.